The day we discovered our HOA president had stolen over $380,000 from our neighborhood funds, 64 families banded together to file the biggest lawsuit our county had ever seen. It all started when she physically shoved me to the ground on my own front lawn. A desperate attempt to silence a single dad who was asking too many questions. What she didn't know was that I'm a forensic accountant who specializes in uncovering financial fraud, and her violent push was about to expose years of systematic theft that had been draining our bank accounts. It all started on an ordinary Tuesday evening. I was sorting through my mail after a long day at the accounting firm, while my 12-year-old daughter Emma practiced her violin in the living room. Bills, catalogs, and then an envelope that made my stomach drop, bright orange and emblazoned with the Oakwood Hills HOA logo. The same logo that had been causing migraines for every homeowner in our neighborhood since Patricia Walters had been elected president 3 years ago. $950 special assessment fee due within 14 days. The letter demanded, with no explanation other than community improvements. I nearly choked on my coffee. I'd just paid a $500 special assessment 2 months ago for pool repairs that somehow never happened. Patricia Walters ran our HOA like her personal kingdom. Rules became stricter, fees higher, and anyone who questioned her found themselves buried in violations and fines. My neighbor Tom had asked about the pool repairs at the last meeting and mysteriously received 5 separate citations the next day for everything from improper trash can placement to unauthorized bird feeder installation. I was already struggling to keep up with the mounting fees as a single dad with a mortgage and Emma's violin lessons. The last thing I needed was another unexplained charge. The next morning, as I backed out of my driveway, I noticed Patricia walking the neighborhood in her designer workout gear and clipboard, her weekly inspection ritual. She paused at my mailbox, her eyes narrowing at the slightly faded paint that had never been an issue before. I waved politely and drove off, but the knot in my stomach tightened. Something about this latest assessment fee felt different. My instincts as a forensic accountant were screaming that something wasn't right. At work, I couldn't focus. My job involved tracking financial discrepancies for major corporations, finding the tiny irregularities that revealed embezzlement or fraud. I'd helped put white-collar criminals behind bars for hiding exactly the kind of vague expenses our HOA budget had been filled with lately. Community improvements, special projects, maintenance reserves. These were the same generic categories embezzlers used to hide stolen funds. Why hadn't I applied my professional skills to my own neighborhood's finances? The answer was simple. No one had access to the complete financial records. Patricia had made sure of that, claiming confidentiality and security concerns. During that day's lunch break, I made a few calls, discreetly reaching out to neighbors I trusted. Sarah, the kindergarten teacher at the end of our street, Mr. Rodriguez, the retired engineer who documented every interaction with the HOA, and Jessica, the real estate agent who had sold me my house 6 years ago. 4 separate conversations revealed the same frustrations, mounting fees with nothing to show for it, but everyone was too afraid to speak up openly. Patricia's retribution was swift and merciless for anyone who questioned her authority. As I pulled into my driveway that evening, my headlights illuminated Patricia standing in front of my house, arms crossed, her usual clipboard replaced by what looked like a stack of violation notices. The fluttering orange papers reminded me of warning flags. She didn't wait for me to exit my car. "Mr. Parker," she called out, her voice carrying that fake sweetness that made my skin crawl. "We need to discuss your multiple compliance issues." I stepped out of my car, professionally dressed from my day at the office, which seemed to irritate her even more. "Good evening, Patricia. What seems to be the problem?" My yard was immaculate, my house well maintained. There was nothing to complain about. but Patricia was already walking toward me. "These violation notices need your immediate attention. First, your mailbox paint is unacceptable." She thrust a paper toward me. "Second, your garbage cans were visible from the street for 3 hours longer than permitted. Third, the birch tree in your front yard exceeds the maximum allowed height by 8 inches. I took a deep breath. "Patricia, these are all new interpretations of rules that have been in place for years. My mailbox is the exact same color it's been since I moved in." She cut me off with a dismissive wave. "Rules are rules, Mr. Parker. That will be $150 for each violation, plus the $950 special assessment, all due by the end of the week, or we'll be forced to add late fees and penalties." I'd had enough. "Patricia, before I pay another cent, I'd like to see exactly where our money is going. The pool repairs were never completed, the sprinkler system supposedly upgraded last year still doesn't work, and now another special assessment, with no explanation. Where exactly are our fees going?" Her face changed in an instant, the pleasant smile vanishing, replaced by something cold and hard. "The Homeowners Association is not required to justify its spending to individual residents. If you have concerns, bring them to the meeting next month like everyone else." I stepped closer, my voice calm but firm. "Actually, as a homeowner, I have every right to review the financial records of the HOA. It's state law." Patricia's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Parker. Some things are better left alone. I've dealt with difficult residents before." I didn't back down. "I'll be submitting a formal request for all financial records for the past 3 years tomorrow morning, as is my legal right." She stepped closer. Despite being nearly a foot shorter than me, her presence was intimidating. "I strongly advise against that action," she hissed. "Some things are better left alone." I should have seen it coming, but I was caught completely off guard. Patricia lunged forward, both hands connecting with my chest, shoving me backward with surprising strength. I lost my balance, falling backward onto my own lawn. The stack of violation notices scattered around me like confetti. As I sat there, stunned, Patricia stood over me, her face twisted with rage. "Stay out of the association's business," she snarled, "or you'll regret it." "Dad?" Emma's voice called from the doorway, her violin still in hand as she watched in horror. "What happened? Are you okay?" I quickly got to my feet, brushing grass from my suit. "Everything's fine, sweetie. Go back inside, please." Patricia's demeanor instantly shifted, a saccharine smile spreading across her face. "Just a little disagreement, dear. Nothing to worry about." But I could see Emma's eyes taking in everything. The scattered papers, my disheveled appearance, Patricia's aggressive stance. I turned to Patricia. "This conversation is over. I'll be filing that request tomorrow, and now I'll also be filing a police report for assault." Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes were ice cold. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "No one will believe you. I have friends in the police department, on the HOA board, in the mayor's office. You're just one homeowner who doesn't want to pay his fair share. Good luck with that." She walked away, head held high, leaving me standing on my lawn with scattered violation notices at my feet. But she'd made a critical mistake by putting her hands on me in front of a witness. She'd crossed a line I couldn't ignore, and as I gathered the orange papers, I made a decision. Patricia Walters had no idea who she was dealing with. I'd spent my career following money trails and uncovering financial crimes. Now I would use every skill I had to find out exactly what she was hiding. That night was a turning point for our quiet neighborhood. What Patricia didn't realize was that her physical assault had unleashed something far more powerful than any threat she could make. The next morning, I filed a police report about the assault. Despite Patricia's connections, a physical attack witnessed by a minor couldn't be ignored. Officer Jenkins took my statement with professional interest. "We've had other complaints about Ms. Walters," he admitted, "though none involving physical confrontation. This is concerning. I also submitted my formal request for HOA financial records as guaranteed by state law, certified mail, signature required. Then I got to work. In the forensic accounting world, we have a saying, follow the money. It never lies. I created a spreadsheet of every HOA fee, special assessment, and fine I'd paid over the past 3 years, then called Sarah and Mr. Rodriguez to compare notes. Patterns emerged. Massive increases with vague justifications, discrepancies between quoted repair costs and what local contractors typically charged. Mr. Rodriguez revealed that his son worked for the City Parks Department, the playground equipment. The HOA claimed to have spent $30,000 replacing would actually cost closer to $10,000. I started documenting everything, calling contractors who'd supposedly done work for our HOA to verify invoices. The first red flag came when Premium Pools and Spas, the company that supposedly repaired our community pool, had never heard of Oakwood Hills or Patricia Walters. The second company, supposedly responsible for our irrigation upgrades, didn't even exist beyond a business name registration filed just 8 months ago. I was building a case, but I needed those official records. Patricia was legally required to provide them within 10 business days. She waited until day 10, when a manila envelope arrived containing just 5 pages, a summary so vague it was useless, along with a note stating that the other records were unfortunately damaged in a recent office flooding. This was textbook obstruction. I'd seen it many times in my professional cases. When I submitted a follow-up request citing specific legal requirements, Patricia's response was to schedule an emergency HOA meeting. The email notification came with a thinly veiled threat about discussing problematic residents who created unnecessary work for the board. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday evening, just 2 days away. I knew this was her attempt to publicly intimidate me, but she'd underestimated my resolve and my preparation. In those 2 days, I gathered more evidence, calling every neighbor on our street. About 80% were willing to talk once they realized they weren't alone. I compiled a spreadsheet showing over $450,000 in special assessments and fees over 3 years, with less than $50,000 in visible improvements. I researched similar HOAs in our area, finding our fees were nearly triple the average. Thursday arrived, and as I walked toward the community center, I felt strangely calm. Emma insisted on coming for moral support, keeping close to my side as we entered. Patricia stood at the podium, regal in her red blazer and perfect makeup, like a queen addressing her subjects. Nearly every homeowner from our neighborhood had shown up, unnerving Patricia, who clearly expected her usual sparse attendance. Took a seat in the front row, spreadsheets and documentation neatly organized in my leather portfolio. Patricia began with her usual updates before moving to what she called disruptive activities by certain residents. It has come to the board's attention that some homeowners are making unreasonable demands for confidential financial information, she announced, her eyes landing directly on me. This causes unnecessary work for our volunteer board and takes time away from important community improvements. I waited patiently until she asked if anyone had questions or concerns. My hand was the first to rise. I stood, my voice steady. Patricia and board members, thank you for holding this meeting. I'd like to address the financial concerns that many of us share. She tried to cut me off. We don't have time for extended comments. But I continued. Several homeowners have raised questions about where our increased fees are going. I've compiled some information that may be helpful. I distributed packets to each board member and placed a stack on the table for other residents. The packets included my spreadsheet analysis, comparisons with other HOAs, and most significantly, a list of contractors who had supposedly done work for us but either didn't exist or had no record of our business. This is highly irregular, Patricia snapped, snatching up one of my packets. You can't just distribute unauthorized materials at an official meeting. Actually, Mr. Rodriguez spoke up from 2 rows behind me. The HOA bylaws specifically permit homeowners to share relevant information during the comment period. I've brought copies of the bylaws for reference. I noticed Patricia's perfectly manicured nails digging into her palm as she realized this wasn't going according to her plan. It's concerning, I continued, that over $450,000 has been collected for specific improvements that remain uncompleted. Where exactly has this money gone? A woman in the back called out. Yes, Mrs. Coleman added. Why did we pay for pool repairs 3 times when the pool still has the same cracked tile from 2019? This is getting out of hand, Patricia hissed, banging her gavel. Meeting adjourned. I will not tolerate this ambush. But no one moved. Instead, more residents stood up, sharing their own frustrations, questions, and concerns. Patricia's face flushed with anger. I watched as her carefully constructed facade began to crumble. This meeting is over, she shouted, but her authority was evaporating before her eyes. As a last resort, she turned to me. This is your fault, she accused, pointing a trembling finger. You're undermining community unity with your accusations and demands. I remained calm, presenting the final piece of evidence I'd been saving. Actually, I've discovered something else concerning, I said as the room quieted. 3 companies that received the largest payments from our HOA, Premium Property Management, Summit Landscaping Design, and Oakwood Renovation Specialists all share the same registered agent, Patricia Walters' brother-in-law.